Good morning, everyone. I am Isabella Patti, and I am a researcher of the department. And my presentation today summarizes the results of my academic research over the past 2 years. I'm interested in history of design, especially in issues related to the culture of design and its diffusion. And the project, the research is called Musa Game, and it is a project for an experimental model of a digital historical simulation realized in a serious game to implement the design knowledge. The goal is to design a game which expands the concept of the commodity by means of various information that allows objects to be reconnected in a space using a multimodal system, multimodal approach that brings out social practice through time and space. Finally, the aim is to reproduce an animated archive of objects to respond effectively to a critical interpretation of cultural material. Why did I choose a serious game? I listed the 7 most important points to answer this question. A serious game is a type of game designed for a serious purpose other than pure fun. The fun is one of the tools for improving the gameplay. Like the challenger, the failure, the domination, the cooperation, the iteration, etc. In a serious game, the players have a complex experience through simulation, and this player experience can be realistic or conceptual. The type of simulation can be interactive or not. Finally, a serious game can be a digital or analogical game activity. It can change players' attitude and beliefs, and potentially it can lead a significant and a long-term social changes. This is the reason why this type of game is called serious. There are very different serious games in the market with different themes. This one on the top is called Flight Simulator, and it is a realistic simulation video game produced to Microsoft in 1982. Its peculiarity is that it was created as a game for casual players, but then it has become a training tool. In fact, today it is used to train pilots in flight procedures. And the Lego Serious game is designed to facilitate communication processes between people working in the same companies, and it improves creative thinking and strategy in the workplace. And after is a Clinic Space, is a medical serious game that allows training in specific procedures for medical staff in virtual hospital. For medical staff, I mean for graduate students in their training. And last is Super Better. It's a casual online multiplayer video game that helps people to overcome problems, physical or mental problems such as depression or broken leg, etc. I started my research from the problems I encountered with my students of my courses. I have about 230 students every year. And very simply, with the digital culture, today it is possible to find indication on the web more easily, but often students, but also the public, are content to study using the digital medium only for its speed and quantity of information, and not for the the real possibility it offers, for example, the quality or the variabilities of information. This is a problem called information overload. It's a very, very difficult problem. While on the one hand, the digital technologies opens up many possibilities for finding information, on the other, it turns the student to settle for the first piece of information he finds, and which unfortunately is often inaccurate. Therefore, in 2009, I started submitting a worksheet to my students who had to complete it, and in which they had to find simple or complex answers to questions designed to reconstruct the greatest number of details identified with an object. And as you've seen in the slide, the questions are of different nature. Basic and functional, morphological and aesthetical data of the object. I analyzed the results, that is the way in which the students choose the information and why some of those answers were wrong or incomplete. This is a cooperative effort between, of humanistic investigation between me and my students. I not only corrected the errors, but we discussed the reason for the errors and the type of medium they used for their study, such as social media, video, interview, of books. At the same time, we discussed the unknown information that the students found, such as unexpected use of the object, or some curiosity about the design life, or altered images inserted in the sales site on the web. The next step was the hypothesis, a Musa game, as an animated archive of cultural material to respond to the critical interpretation of information found by me and my students. This is the flow chart of Musa game. It brings together the information processed from the worksheet into a game structure. It is divided into two parts. At the bottom, in the black diagram, you can see the information gathered from the worksheet into concept map. And the top, in orange and blue, the diagram develops the structure of the game. The Musa game is designed to allow students to make meaningful choices within the problem space in the past. The problem space is a useful concept inspired by video game theory and problem solving theory. That brings together game realm and historical scenarios. The past as a problem space is a kind of past that encourages the student to explore the space filled with challenges, choices and consequences, influences and possibilities. The theme of Musa game will be the evolution of Italian design between 20s to 90s, I think. And this diagram describes the method used for the configuration of a system, from the creation of a worksheet by the teacher, the brainstorming in class, the reconstruction of multiple representation of objects, up to the development of conceptual maps for augmented objects, and the brainstorming cards for the rhetorical procedural. The brainstorming card are these. These are the brainstorm cards used to describe each stage of the simulation on paper. This served to give an idea of the physical structure of the game, of the simulated world of the Musa game, before moving on to the code. These cards tell where and how objects are in the game and define the activities of the players. Instead, this diagram describes the structure of the game that has a static and dynamic level. The orange line highlights the 4 fundamental points of the basic structure, which are the elements, the rule, the theme, and the process. The blue line defines the flow, that is the means necessary to hypothesize a certain experience of the player in the game. This is the current stage of my research. I'm working on the rhetoric elements of historical simulation, and I split the information in 3 dimensions: the participatory, the immersive, and the exploratory dimension. In the participatory, the dimension participatory encouraged the players to modify, to analyze, to disassemble the object in the space, in the problem space. The immersive dimension can contain all or some of these points, such as augmented reality, journey, and sound effects. And finally, the exploratory dimension should be container elements such as selection of style, preparation of scenarios, compare products, and possibility for the players to identify his or her strength. I finished. Thank you for.